Welcome to Professor Wright. You have a voice. Let's find it. Now, of course, this is the first Professor Wright video, and as such, here in a couple of moments, I'll be giving you an overview of what this lecture series is going to entail. But first, I'd like to introduce myself, give you a little background as to why I have the qualifications to sit here and call myself Professor Wright and talk to you about writing. First and foremost, I'm a published author and fairly successful at what I do. I have currently two different series on the market. One is the Brotherhood of Dwarves series, and book one in that series, just to give you an idea of the quality of my writing, book one has 107 reviews, and 56 of those are 5-star and 34 are 4-star. So that's 90 out of 107 are either 4 or 5-star. And I'm rather proud of those numbers. I feel like it's a good representation of the quality that I bring to the table as a writer. My other series that's out is the Sam Skeen saga, and this series is a weird western / horror series that follows a fallen preacher during the post-Civil War era who is being hunted by demons as he attempts to redeem himself after a fall from grace. It's a pretty fun series, and I really enjoy writing it. In addition to my own writing that I also have a Master of Arts in Writing from the University of Memphis. And while I was there, I studied under the likes of Randall Keenan, John Bensko, Margaret Skinner, Reginald Martin, all of whom are published authors and very well respected as both authors and as educators. And I learned a lot from them, learned a lot about crafting stories, a lot about polishing sentences, a lot about composition and how to put together a narrative that's going to have the best impact for an audience. And so hopefully I can share some of that information with you as we go through this lecture series. Now, in addition to my own personal education as a student and my writing career, I also worked for 16 years as a collegiate instructor. I taught at 3 different schools, the University of Memphis to start, then I went to a small private school called Tusculum College, and then I ended up my career at a community college here in East Tennessee, Walter State Community College. In my time as an educator, I taught composition, creative writing, business communications, literature. I pretty well ran the gamut. And I have a lot of experience in teaching what works for the real world. And that's my approach to teaching writing, is I don't really want to get bogged down a whole lot in abstract theory. I want to focus on tips that you can use that will help you in the real world to succeed, either as a student writing papers in school, or if your aspirations are a little larger and you want to be a professional writer. I feel like I bring a lot to the table that I can share with you to improve your skills and make you better at conveying what you want to convey. Now, personally, I'm not very comfortable talking about myself. I would much rather get into the meat of the series and talk about what we're going to be covering in this. So let's talk about first the purpose behind why I'm putting together this lecture series. The first reason is I want to share my knowledge. Like I said, I worked for 16 years as an educator. And unfortunately, just the way the system has evolved today, I got burned out and didn't want to continue working as a collegiate instructor. I didn't fit into the system anymore, and I didn't feel like the system was moving in a positive direction for my taste. So I wanted to get away. But that doesn't mean that I don't still want to teach, because I love sharing my knowledge. I have a passion for language. I have a passion for teaching. And I hope that those passions come through in this lecture series, because I really want to share what I know with others to help them to be a part of sharing their voice with the world, whatever it is that they have to say. And so for me, that's the first reason and the most important reason of why I wanted to put this lecture series together, was to share that knowledge that I have and hopefully improve other people's lives. The second reason why I wanted to do this lecture series is because I wanted to give something back to the community. I wanted to give something back to others, because to me, I feel like it's important in this world for those who have been blessed with either ability or with good fortune to give back to others. And personally, I feel like I've been blessed with a skill at writing and a skill for teaching writing, and I want to give that back to the community. And to me, that's very important. I feel like we live in a world today where there's a lot of take. And to me, I want to do something a little different. I want to give back. Now, the final reason why I started this lecture series is a little bit selfish. I want to expand my own audience as a writer. I feel like any writer out there who, unless they're J.K. Rowling or Stephen King, every writer out there wants to expand their readership, and I'm no different. And I feel like this medium of giving away this educational content will allow me to reach a lot more people than I can otherwise. And so that's the final reason. And I do realize and acknowledge that that's a little bit of a selfish reason for doing this. But hopefully the fact that I am sharing this knowledge for free and I am giving it back to the community, hopefully those two override the fact that I do want to expand my own audience. Now, let's get into an overview of what we're going to cover in this lecture series. First, we're going to go into the writing process itself, from sitting down, coming up with ideas, to getting those ideas down on paper or down on a computer, and then to polishing it into a form that's going to have the most impact for the audience that you're trying to reach. I think that segment will probably end up being somewhere between 10 to 12 videos. And just as a side note here, each video is going to be roughly 10 minutes in length. And I've chosen that length for a very specific reason. First of all, that's about as long as you can hope to keep someone's attention span on one particular subject. And so I chose that just to kind of go along with the maximum length of attention span. But also because I wanted it to be something where these are small, digestible chunks. If you're a student, you can go watch them in between classes and have a chance to absorb them and digest them quickly, come back to them if you need to. And also if you're somebody who is in the real world working and you're riding on the subway to work, 10 minutes, you can listen to one of the videos, move on to the next one if you have time, but they're small, digestible chunks. So we'll start with the writing process, and as I said, about 10 to 12 videos in that segment. From there, I'm going to have a section on the collegiate essay. Now, obviously, this segment will be geared primarily towards college students. I'm going to teach a classical form of essay and the different parts of that, and go over it for you as a tool that you can use throughout your college career as a way to write very quick, effective papers for whatever class that you have. I anticipate the collegiate essay segment to probably run about 5 to 7 videos, depending on how much detail I go into and how much I cover on the nuts and bolts of putting an essay together. From there, I'm going to move into a segment on creative writing. I can't tell you now how many videos that's going to cover. I'm just not sure yet. It could be 10, it could be 20. It depends on how much detail I want to get into. Now, I'm calling it creative writing. It's specifically going to be on fiction because I do not consider myself a poet. I have written some poetry in the past, but it's mostly personal stuff, and I don't consider myself a poet, and I don't consider myself an expert on poetry, so I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to focus more on fiction in my creative writing section. I'm going to go over short stories, novellas, and novels, get into the nuts and bolts of what makes a good story, get into the nuts and bolts of how to develop characters and how to develop plot. I'm really excited about getting to that because that's really where my passion lies, is in creative writing and putting together new and exciting stories. From there, I'm going to move into a segment on the rudiments of research. Now again, this one will be primarily geared towards college students. However, if you're an aspiring writer, it's really important that you understand the basics of research, because you cannot hope to be a professional writer if you do not research. The two go hand in hand. And if you do not want to embarrass yourself as a writer, you need to be good at research. You need to be able to absorb information and hold on to it for your own writing later down the road. Beyond that, I'm then going to move into a segment, I'm calling it clarity of voice. It's basically tightening up sentence structure, tightening up composition itself so that your sentences and your phrases and the chapters that you put together or the stories that you put together have the maximum punch that they can have. Again, I don't know how many videos I'm going to do on that. It depends on what kind of demand there is and how much detail people want me to go into. There's a lot that I can teach, and there's a lot that I can cover. I just want to see, before I commit to a video number, I want to see what kind of demand there is. Beyond that, beyond clarity of voice, there's still a lot that I can teach. But again, it's going to depend on demand. It's going to depend on popularity. If there is a demand for it, I will continue to make videos. If not, obviously I'm not going to keep beating a dead horse. But for me, I would like to continue on and do more, because I know there's a lot of material that I can cover. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now, that pretty well covers what we're going to do in this video lecture series. Start with the writing process, go through the collegiate essay, get into some creative writing, cover the rudiments of research, clarity of voice, and then anything else as demand dictates. So this concludes our first video, our introduction to the lecture series as a whole. Please tune in to the next one. I'm going to cover something that's going to be a sidebar to the entire lecture series as a whole. A couple of really important pieces of information and an activity that I'm going to have you do if you follow this lecture series that will be a tool that you can use for the rest of your life to help you practice writing. So please join me for video number 2. So that's all for this video. If you will please join us at www.daadams.com. Have a lot of things there at the website. We're going to have weekly vocabulary building exercises, along with a feedback forum where you can ask questions and receive feedback on it. Let me say, as far as the feedback goes, I will not read manuscripts, so please do not ask me to read and critique manuscripts. I have too much of my own writing to do. I don't mean to be rude, but I just do not have the time or energy to read other people's manuscripts. But beyond that, I will answer basic questions. I will offer you the best advice that I can on how to fix a specific thing, or how to polish up a particular sentence, or just any other question that you have pertaining to the craft of writing. So please join us at the website. You'll also find links to my own books if you're interested in checking those out. And I hope to see you there, and I hope to see you at the next video segment. This is Professor Wright. You have a voice. Let's find it.